Welcome to the Scale Blueprint, the show where we sit down with business leaders who are building smarter, faster, and stronger companies in a world that keeps changing on us. Each episode brings you real conversations about growth, resilience, leadership, and how technology can give your business a real edge. Today's guest brings that edge in a big way. Tom Kirkham is the CEO and founder of Kirkham Iron Tech, a leading managed IT and cybersecurity firm. An accomplished author and writer, his best-selling books, Hack the Rich and the Cyber Pandemic Survival Guide, make cybersecurity accessible and engaging for a broad audience. Throughout his career, Tom has won multiple software design awards and led technology ventures, including a retail software company that served high-profile clients like the NSA, Sprint, and Premier Golf Clubs. As a keynote speaker, he's known for his insightful presentations on digital resilience and AI-driven threats, helping individuals and organizations defend against modern cybersecurity risks. Tom, thank you for joining me today.
It's my pleasure to be here, Mike.
All right, thanks, Tom. So first of all, I'd really like to hear about your journey. What first pulled you into cybersecurity and eventually motivated you to build Iron Tech into the company it is today?
That's a good question. Let's see, we'll be 26 years old next month, the company, the Kirkham Iron Tech. And, 26 years ago, it was pretty much just antivirus. I forgot what we used, probably Bitdefender or something else. It was what we thought at the time was the best stuff. And as time went on, and this is probably around 12 years ago, we came across this product that is known as an EDR, Endpoint Detect and Respond, right? So it's a whole different class of product. Antivirus is like this 40-year-old technology that was built for a different era. Primarily that it only detects virus signatures, and it has to download it, and you've got to continuously update them, and that's not adequate anymore at all today. Even 10, 12 years ago, it was a little bit of cutting edge. We try to stay ahead of the curve. And so that's what took us down this road. And one of the things about this class of products, and I think that CrowdStrike and SentinelOne are the two market leaders. We're SentinelOne partner.
Oh, okay.
But this class of products use machine learning, artificial intelligence to detect storylines of an attack. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, that means it's monitoring the user and the computer, constantly looking for something that looks like an attack is about to happen. And then the really good ones will freeze the processes and kill processes that are malicious. And it's very, very effective. And it's designed in such a way that it's a neural net, right?
Okay.
There's no software there are software updates for the agents, but that's not going to determine whether it's going to detect a threat.
Okay.
So what that means is, say, a brand new technical threat or new storyline of an event, a security event, is detected in, say, Tokyo, right? And one of these agents is on the computer, and it's the first one to detect it. Now, it may not defend against it because it's never been seen before. The neural net's not aware of this particular storyline. But it knows that an event just occurred or even an actual attack just occurs. So that storyline becomes a part of the neural net. So get this. This is what's cool about them. Within minutes, every other device that has one of these agents, say a SentinelOne agent, EDR, within minutes, all of them around the world know what to look for and defend against it.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's really, really cool stuff. And it's been out for years. See, we've been using AI on the defensive side for years.
Okay.
And it's truly a game changer in the industry. And basically, when we talk to clients, if they're not using an EDR, well, they're not compliant with us. It's inadequate, It's not going to detect modern threats. They'll just go right past it like nothing ever happened, you know?
Yeah.
And consequently, 10 years ago, we used to try to upgrade our clients to it. But the more we thought about it, not only were they still keeping a risk for something that's really not that expensive,
Mhm.
yeah, it costs more than antivirus, but it's still not that bad. It's not as expensive as some people think it is. But we were having trouble getting clients to upgrade to pay the extra fees.
Mhm.
And we finally decided that we can't take the risk as a company because our clients, all of their computers and servers and everything,
Yeah.
those are a threat vector to us if they become
Right.
infected, right?
Yeah.
And if we get compromised, then
Mhm.
all of our other clients are at risk because
Yeah.
we got the keys to a lot of kingdoms.
Right.
And the hackers know that because we've been targeted for years.
Yeah. Wow.
Back in the old days where it cost them time, money, and energy to target people.
Mhm.
So funny thing was we said, well, it's you're paying for it or you're not a client anymore. So
Yeah.
we stuck to our guns and didn't lose a client, and they're thankful that we pressed them on it and protected them because eventually something's going to happen, and we're fortunate to be able to say we haven't had a customer have a significant compromise since we started doing that. And I hope I can always say that, but
Yeah.
there's no 100% in this business.
Yeah.
You
It's
know the
you hear about these breaches happening all the time in the news. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
the National Security Agency,
Mhm.
arguably the nation's most premier cyber offensive weapons team,
Mhm.
cyber warfare team, they've been breached. And,
Yeah.
if the NSA can be breached and others, these different departments in the military, well, that just proves that there's nothing 100%.
Right.
You And so our objective is to get them to where, instead of them being at any given year 5 to 10% chance of being breached or having a significant security event, we want to get them down to that point 0.1, point 0.01, point 0.001,
Mhm.
and then maintain all of the standards around worst case scenario. Can you recover from this? Can you stay in business? So we help clients do all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of clients, I wanted to ask, do you recall who your first ever client was when you started Iron Tech?
Yeah, yeah. It was a friend of mine, and he wanted a little bit of help with kind of getting it's a business machine company, copiers and printers and things like that. And he wanted to get a little bit of help, kind of getting his team up to more, network savvy.
Mhm.
And so I took some classes on the copiers to get where I could kind of do some programming, kind of some fancy stuff with them, and walked them through the right way to connect a copier to a network rather than the
Right.
way it's normally done. And yeah, he was nice enough to let me work for him for 3 or 4 months
All right.
and help me out of a tight spot.
Yeah.
And to this day, he says it made him a better company. I hope that's true, but
All right.
regardless, yeah, that was my first paying gig.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, I was still working out of the house. And, in fact, I started radio advertising while I was still in the dining room of my house.
Wow. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
great.
so
Radio.
it's 100% bootstrap company.
Yeah. That's a great story. That's a great story. I love it. I love hearing about those stories about how people get started and that's inspiring to me.
Yeah, yeah. We one of the other things that I did that I thought it ended up being great. It was a great idea, not to pat myself on the back, but I started thinking about, well, how do I advertise the business? And, so much of this stuff is so expensive, but radio is one of those things that's not that expensive. And
Mhm.
I go, what station would small business owners listen to?
Oh, okay.
And most small business owners are conservative. And
Mhm.
we had an AM talk radio.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I started advertising with them.
Mhm.
And they asked me to be a guest on the local morning part of the routine. So,
Nice.
yeah, so I became their tech guy. Call
Oh,
in, ask Tom questions.
oh,
I had, 20 minutes on their show every
yeah.
Friday, I think.
Okay.
And we started talking, and I said, I think that I could turn this into a radio show.
Yeah.
So for 4 years, I had a weekly radio show.
Nice.
People called in, it was an hour long, and I helped them with their problems, and it really got our name out there is what the point of
Yeah.
this. We had mind share,
Right.
and, I didn't pay for the airtime,
Man.
and they didn't pay me for it, and it
Yeah,
was a
that's
it was
great.
a really good arrangement.
Yeah, that's great. And then I'm sure they had advertisers that were willing to pay, to advertise during your show, like, hey, cybersecurity software or antivirus back then or whatever it was.
They never I never understood why they didn't try to sell ads.
Oh, they did? Oh, wow.
No,
Okay.
I
Interesting.
guess they were thinking, "Well, I can't sell to a competitor of his, and so who then?" But I don't know. I don't know why that was the case.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, one of my commercials would run through my
Oh,
show,
okay.
but I made it clear that I wasn't there to talk about the company,
Right, right.
but it was the Tom Kirkham show. The
Yeah.
company was Kirkham, so everybody made the connection.
Oh, yeah. And, it was probably really educational for you too, hearing all the problems that people are facing and getting these questions all the time. It just seems like that process is, kind of educates you even more, because there's a phase where you're learning something, but then when you're teaching someone else, it kind of raises it up a level, if that
Yeah,
makes.
yeah, absolutely. It was a blast. I mean, I loved it, and we would go in there, so you have to prepare in case you don't have any phone calls, right? So I would have a whole list of topics that happened the previous week about, nerd stuff, technology,
Hmm.
and so if we didn't have any calls, I was ready to talk about stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did about almost 300 shows, I think, and believe me, at that time, I was terrible at public speaking. I hadn't gotten rid of all the nervousness and all the stage fright and all of that. And so I was terrified for the first 2 or 3 dozen shows. I mean, it
Hmm.
really took me a long time to get over that hump.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
it sounds like that was kind of a turning point which helped you scale the business, was doing that radio show. Is that a fair statement?
absolutely. It led to, okay, I needed some office space and then started hiring people and we just grew it from there. And we did everything at first. We did software programming,
Mhm.
for companies that need projects built, did website design. We did what's known in the business as break fix.
Okay.
So somebody's computer's got something broken or needs a hard drive upgrade, they bring it into us. It was like a retail environment, right?
Okay.
And there's still break fix companies out there today, and they serve a valuable purpose. They're generally cheaper and better than the big box retailer. As time went on, we thought, well, we need to be more proactive and really work with these businesses to help them achieve their goals, their business objectives,
Mhm.
and see and they get a really good return on investment for their investment in technology. Then it evolved into, well, let's make sure you don't go out of business because you got breached.
Yeah.
And then finally, we started seeing that they need a lot of help with governance in their organization. So those are the 3 pillars. We call it the Iron Tech framework. Those are the 3 pillars of how we do things with clients.
Okay. And so I think you kind of talked about some of the challenges that you faced when you're scaling the business. How did those challenges help shape you as a leader that you are now?
That's a great question. I guess it's about a little over 10 years ago. I went through a lot of personal tragedy and then the capper was having an FBI agent come in and say, "Hey, you're on an ISIS kill list."
Oh my gosh.
And so I was fortunate enough that this friend of mine that I'd hired, he took over the company, as president and chief operating officer. And I just got on an airplane, started traveling to Europe and other places, and just
Mhm.
really spent a lot of time thinking about what's my life going to look like for the next whatever.
Mhm.
and what do I really want to do as a person, and what are my values, and what are the company's values.
Mhm.
So I started thinking in terms of leadership versus management, right? Those are two entirely different things.
Right.
Well, I've already got an ops guy and a president for the
Uh,
company. So
yeah.
and he's a good manager. He's a great manager. He's a good
Right.
leader too.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, if I'm going to let him still remain in that role, which is cool with me,
Mhm.
what is my role and how can I serve the company the best and serve everyone in it? So that's where we adopted servant leadership principles in the company. And, we started this stakeholder philosophy, not shareholder, but stakeholder philosophy, where the employees get stock options. We consider our clients, our vendors as stakeholders in our success. And with some other values, I just kept, baking it into the culture. Peter Drucker, business guru, it's a number of books he's written. One of my favorite sayings of his is culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Mhm.
And I interpret that as meaning that you're going to have gaps in your policies and procedures, and things are going to pop up with anybody in the company on the spot.
Yeah.
And they have to have autonomy to make judgment decisions, right?
Mhm.
Well, if you've got the right culture established, you're going to find those decisions are going to be much, much better, and they will make up for the fact that you don't have a policy designed for that very specific scenario.
Mhm.
And it creates for a much happier environment. People really want to work for us. We get resumes all the time, and I hope everyone is genuinely happy to be there,
Yeah.
and it just makes things so much better.
Yeah.
And so as a leader, I said, okay, here's what I see coming down the road. I work really hard on culture.
Mhm.
Work with one of the things that we do with onboarding is, you know, and this is important too. When we bring somebody on board, we tell them that we're going to do anything we can to help them succeed in this
Right.
role.
Yeah.
And because we don't want it on our back that if it doesn't work out, that it was our fault,
Right.
right? Nobody wants that.
Right.
And it really resonates. And I'm sure some are going, yeah, yeah, well, that's BS, but we really do walk the talk. I mean,
Yeah.
it's you can walk in our office and people are helping other people constantly all day long. And I'll walk in and I'll go up to an intern and say, what can I help you with? Do you need me to grease a wheel or something? Or
Yeah.
yeah, whatever you need. I'm here to serve you. Right.
Mhm.
And that's what leaders do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That and
I was kind of curious. I wanted to ask about the culture because I know it's really important. And how do you figure out if someone's a cultural fit from just like a round of interviews? I know you have these interviews and everyone's putting on their best face in the interview and they're answering all the right questions and all that. But how can you tell if they're a good fit culturally?
yeah, that's good. We worked really hard, and we're still working on it, to uncover people that are good fits. And one of the best techniques that we found is to ask questions in such that are really about their values.
Right.
This is a real simple one. Do you consider yourself lucky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every day.
Well, then you're somebody that consciously or subconsciously
Hmm.
live your life in such a manner that you are lucky, right? And because if you don't live your life and I'm not talking karma and all these weird things. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
your values and your attitude about life and things like that generally increases more opportunities for a person. And so that's one of them. Another question that we ask is, you're having a dinner party. You can invite 3 guests. They can be either fictional or real life, living or dead. Can't be a family member, or anybody real close to you? Who are you inviting,
Okay.
and what are you serving them for dinner?
Ooh. Wow.
So your people right now are going, well, what in the world crazy thing is that? And what we find out, there's no right or wrong answers,
Right.
you know, but it's like, well, why are you serving steak, or why are you serving lasagna or pizza or whatever, or
Right.
why did you pick Neil deGrasse Tyson or
Uh-huh.
Jesus or,
Yeah.
whatever? And when they start explaining things, you learn more and more about their personality and what their values are. And it works we got a lot more too, but those are kind of two of my favorites. And then once we, go through the process and here's how we do things, here's our culture, it really gets a buy-in as well. So does everyone work out? No. But sometimes, the MSP business, which is kind of what we are, that's what we're called, a
Right.
managed service provider or managed security services provider. It's different than corporate IT.
Mhm.
And especially on the technical side of the house, some people prefer corporate IT because the systems don't change. They become experts on those systems in this Fortune 500 company. In our world, we're managing all sorts of different types of systems. It's you get it's a really quick education in multiple networks. Now, do our people get that in-depth knowledge of somebody, a single person working 5 years on the same network system? No. But we serve a valuable service for companies that aren't big enough to have their own IT staff.
Yeah.
And it's because of all of the different networks experience, we can do things. There's pros and cons both ways, but we tend to be more resilient and know a lot more about a lot different things, right? So,
Yeah. So, I wanted to touch on AI and how that's kind of reshaping the market, and I wanted to get your take on where, with regards to cybersecurity, what changes do you expect to see in the next few years that leaders should start preparing for now?
well, we're going to start a big AI initiative sometime next year. I was hoping to do it in the first quarter, but I don't know if I can right now. But I'm having trouble finding solutions for part of our problem. But we've been using it for prospecting and marketing and sales up until the point they become a client. And then that's where we have to stop, right? Because there's privacy concerns around AI.
Hmm.
And it's been very effective. But I'll tell you the number one thing is if we've got a role in the company that needs filling, before we fill that role, we're going to say, is there any way AI or some other form of automation can prevent, keep us from having to hire more people?
Yeah.
And we're seeing that everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have good up to date job data right now, but I promise you it's being reflected. And I mean, we hear about the headlines all the time. Amazon and all these other big companies are laying off people, and a lot of times it's attributed to use of artificial intelligence. And of course, that covers all businesses, not just ours. Now, the bad news is the bad guys are using AI
Right.
like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we started seeing it a couple of years ago, right after ChatGPT became popular,
Yep.
and we got an email. Most of these infections email's the most common threat vector to get a
Yeah.
virus or to get a hacker inside of a network. And they're good. They're really good emails
Right.
these days. You remember a few years ago they had bad grammar and
Yeah.
yeah, and
And it was
crappy graphics.
obvious that it was ChatGPT.
Yeah, that is rare. We
Yeah.
we actually pass them around the office now when we see one that like that and laugh about
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
No, these guys are pros. And so a couple of years ago, or maybe it's been 3 now, however long ChatGPT's been out,
Right.
um, accounting got an email from our chief marketing officer,
Mhm.
and it simply said, "Send me the latest aged accounts receivable report." It had her signature.
Oh my
Kenzie
gosh.
Haynes had a normal signature for her, and it was perfectly worded. There was nothing out of the ordinary.
Mm.
Now we caught it simply because it was a bogus email address, right? You know how you just click on it and reveal the real email address?
Right, right.
But the true giveaway was her title was wrong. And if you remember the Chat GPT, when it until fairly recently, it was using historical data.
Yeah,
Her
yeah.
old title was, I think, marketing director, and she had gotten a
Uh-huh.
CMO title fairly recently. And so instead of it saying CMO, it said,
Yeah.
yeah, marketing director.
Oh my gosh.
And and they had used AI to
Mhm.
crawl through LinkedIn, establish the org chart.
Yeah.
And now we tell brand new hires, if you change that, and that's perfectly fine. I hope you do change your LinkedIn where you work at, but within days, they're getting an email from their boss and it's a scam of,
Yeah.
buy 10 Apple gift cards. It may look like it comes
Uh,
from Kinsey and said, I need 10 Apple gift cards for a promo. Send me the numbers. Yeah. So, and they're using AI in so many other different ways, denial of service attacks, and it's allowed the hackers to scale and target, which is something they couldn't do before AI hit.
yeah.
They could target people, like I've been personally targeted for years and the company's been targeted for years, but that's expensive, or it was expensive.
Yeah.
But now AI just can crawl LinkedIn, give an org chart, automatically fire off 100,000 emails, each individually tailored for
Right.
that organ as the target.
Yeah.
And it's like 10 mouse clicks, and they're making $10 million on ransomware. Yeah.
That's crazy. And the crazy part is it's only gonna get better at doing that, right? It's only gonna improve.
Yeah, we had to implement a security policy, kind of a two-factor authentication with our clients for our support desk.
Right.
So it works both ways. So because we with deep fake stuff, I got videos all over YouTube. In fact, I cloned my own voice,
Mhm.
but it would be easy for somebody to call somebody using my voice and
Yeah.
get into their network.
Yeah.
And so now we've got verifications to make sure that they're truly a client and to make sure that they can verify that it's truly us. So
Yeah.
hoping to stay ahead of the
Yeah.
curve there.
Yeah. Gotta stay ahead of it. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And before we wrap up, I wanted to give you a moment to share what you're working on and where listeners can learn more about Iron Tech and your books and all the services you provide and who they should reach out to.
You can reach our website is kirkhamirontech.com. Kirkham is Kirk. Well, it'll be on the notes on the video.
Yeah, yeah, I'll put it in the
So the website's on there, and if you fill out any contact form for whatever reason, it will route it to the right person. If you got a question for me, if you're interested in any of the books, of course, they're on Amazon. I'm working on a movie that hopefully will be coming to a theater near you next year,
Great.
and it's a hacking movie, of course.
Nice.
And so we're deep into pre-production right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
I'd like to get an invite to the grand opening.
sure, sure.
That'd be that'd be aw-
It's an interesting business. It's I like to think that I'm pretty good at business, but I've never. It's like a house of cards, and it just so many things can go wrong and right, and
Yeah,
the when Hollywood shows what's
yeah,
happening behind the scenes, it's always hectic and chaotic, and it really is like that. You just never
yeah.
know what's going to happen.
I
But
can
it's a
o
lot of fun. It's a fun project.
Cool. Expanding your horizons there. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and now I've got some business partners that they love the idea as well.
That's great. Well, hey, this has been outstanding. You brought a lot of clarity to a space that, can feel overwhelming for a lot of leaders. And thanks for sharing your insights and for the work you do to keep businesses and individuals protected. And I wanted to thank everyone for listening to the Scale Blueprint. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to follow the show and share it with someone who would get value from it. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot, Tom.
It's my pleasure.